All right. Hopefully the YouTube works tonight. If not, we'll figure out what we need to do and we'll make it happen anyway. Doesn't look like it's turning on, but we will give it a minute and see if it works here. We got it at least over here on TikTok with you guys. We'll get into the questions tonight on the AMA that we do every Monday and Wednesday night. Doesn't look like the YouTube is going to turn on, so I have to figure out, probably just gonna have to go over to the other platform, but we will get it going. Let's see. It says it's live. It's just spinning, connecting streaming software to go live. Okay. Well, it says it's live, but I don't see. There we go. All right, it's working. Very good. Cool. Well, hopefully you guys had a wonderful day and your week is going well. I was up at 5 a.m. and we'll go till 11 o'clock tonight. So another, what's that end up being? It's 6 hours worth of sleep. And we're working the whole rest of the time. So hopefully you guys are going after whatever you're looking to achieve. Sometimes it takes a lot of sacrifice and effort and time away from other stuff, but it'll all be worth it in the end. So happy to be here doing it. And again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday night to hang out with, well, your Wednesday night to hang out with me here on the live and ask good questions. Haven't seen a whole lot of news. Brad got married. Market seems calm. Maybe it's the calm before the storm. It does look like, we're coming to the end of a descending triangle or a bull flag on a lot of the charts. Not a TA guy, I tell you all that all the time, but I'm hoping that maybe we see a breakout here. We've got, well, this was interesting to me. So blockchain backer, you guys know that I follow him. He is a TA guy. He just sold a third of all of his positions. I don't know about that. I don't know if he's going to be caught, flat-footed here and potentially miss out. The Russell's broken out and he's concerned that the rest of the markets are not going to go. I don't have that concern. We do have, interest rates have been dropped. That was priced in. People kind of knew that was coming. We have stocks at an all-time high. We have stocks at the highest valuation that they have literally ever been. So that's concerning to me. I don't know that you're going to get the rotation into the small caps once the large caps fall. I think the reverse carry trade is just going to affect everything when it unwinds. And I think you're starting to see people pull positions and slowly work their way out of the market because they see the impending doom that's written on the wall for the reverse carry trade. The Bank of Japan is looking to raise interest rates here in October, and that will unwind the reverse carry trade. I haven't looked at the 10-year yield over there in Japan in a couple days, so let's pull that up real quick, see where that's at. Currently hanging out at 1.645. 1.5 to 1.6 is the danger zone. We are past the danger zone, and we are into uncharted territory over there. Anytime, if we saw, a 50 basis point move, somewhere around 1%, a 10% move the upside in bonds, everything starts to melt down there with the reverse carry trade. And again, I'm still watching oil very closely. I don't think the Bank of Japan is going to want to be the one who takes the blame on this deal. And in order to not do that, they need a crisis, a catalyst, something outside of their control that they can point to and blame for their necessity to raise interest rates very aggressively and unwind the reverse carry trade, which just happened to line up with a lot of these ETFs going live here in October. Little birdie told me that, maybe next week we see the HBAR and Litecoin ETFs. We'll see if that holds true or not. And then they also mentioned that they think the XRP ETFs could go live within the next couple weeks here before mid-October. So we'll see how much in the know that person is, but I feel like they're pretty well informed. A lot of other great things happening out there in the market. We're having a lot of meetings with people that are looking to, position themselves in digital assets. We have a lot of interest right now. I've been getting a lot of people that are outside of digital assets inquiring, setting up calls, having conversations with myself and our team. So if you're here, you're still early. You figured it out before other people, and just want to say kudos to you for having the wherewithal to understand what's going on and doing your due diligence and placing your bets accordingly. That's probably a good parlay into my disclaimer, which is this is not financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please consult with a financial advisor, a attorney, or a tax professional before making any legal, tax, or financial decisions. If you need those professionals, you can obviously work with Digital Ascension Group and our subsidiaries and partners. And then lastly, the opinions shared this evening are my own opinions. They are not the opinions of the firm at Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners. So now that we have the disclaimer out of the way, we'll hop into the questions here and run it down with you guys until about 11 p.m. Central Standard Time. This person says I changed my name because Jake says so. It's a good reason to do it. Thank you for the super chat. They said, hey, Jake, I cashed in my stocks and shares of my ISA today and went all in on XRP. Feels so good. Let's go. Dude, good day to do it. We had a nice pullback today in the market. I think I saw a couple different people, pile in here. I don't know how much better price is going to get. Again, BCB sold a third of his bag, so maybe he's right and he's going to be able to buy back lower. I don't know why he's doing that and dealing with the tax implications associated with selling a third of your bag at the current prices. I mean, I know that he's got to be up on most of those positions. But if you're a trader and that's how you make your money, I guess, you probably have a trading LLC and he's only taxed on the profits or loss at the end of the year. We set up holding companies for people. And that holding company manages your assets. You're able to take advantage of long-term capital gains if you've held things more than a year, if you structure it that way. Trading companies are always taxed at the income level, short-term capital gains, never long-term capital gains because of the way the company is structured. So if you want the long-term capital gains advantage, I would suggest setting up a corporation. Doesn't have to be with us, but as a holding company that manages your digital assets, and take advantage of those tax benefits. We've got Jacole, interesting name. They say, hey, Jake, can you break down an example of expected dividends or net pay one might receive after prices appreciate, let's say 10,000 XRP at $1,000 a piece, looking for annual fee, cost breakdown, net income? Good question. Drinking out of my R3 mug here. So if you had 10,000 XRP at $1,000 a piece, you've got $100 million. Is that accurate? 10 million. Well, might be 100 million. Let me do the math. I'm always off by 1 0. Got 1,000 times 10,000. That's $10 million. Okay. 10 mil. And it just depends on what products you're into. We had FXRP go live today. That has been so long, so long of a promise that's been coming by Flare Network. They took the snapshot on December 12th of 2020. So almost 5 years ago for them to launch F assets. What a beating that has been to wait for that to happen. I know many people already jumped in the pool over there and they're using the DeFi and they're excited about it. I'm going to hold off a little bit on that one. Not to say that you should. If you are bullish on it, if you're excited about it, and I wouldn't jump in with my whole bag. Even, the returns are looking like 7% over there. I think there'll be lots of opportunities to be able to generate somewhere between 5 and 10% on your XRP. There will be some risk associated with that. We're looking to pay dividends here in Q4. You know, one of our fund, I shouldn't talk about returns for the funds on here. I'll get in trouble. So we're looking to launch a yield type product in Q4 of 2025. And that should be kind of like staking your XRP. It'll be 3 to 4% risk-free on your XRP inside institutional custody when we roll that out. So excited about that for people. But let's say you had $10 million earning 3 or 4% a year. That'd be $300,000 or $400,000 per year in income passive off of your XRP. In cash, those would be quarterly distributions. So let's call it, $100,000 a quarter that you would be getting off of your XRP Digital Wealth Partners once we go live with that product. So if you had $10 million, if you had 10,000 XRP at $1,000 a piece, that's what it works out to. There will be opportunities to, take a little bit more risk. I think most people will take their portfolio and diversify across low to high yield strategies. The majority of their portfolio will be put to work in, low risk to no risk strategies, generating somewhere between 3 to 5% a year. Somewhere between 30 and 60% of your portfolio is probably on that side. And then maybe another 20% to 25% is in the mid. And then, maybe as little as 10% on the high side of risk. Maybe up to 20% there as well. Just depends on your risk tolerance, time horizon, goals, all that you got, but I think a blended rate of somewhere around 12 to 13% on the XRP is what we're going to be looking to target for our clients at Digital Wealth Partners through all of the different diversified strategies that we'll be rolling out through the end of the year. So super excited about that. None of those are DeFi. We're doing it traditionally, and we don't need any of the potential risks associated with, giving your assets over to somebody else or locking them up in a liquidity pool. We may end up tokenizing the offerings that we have over the long term, but we want to understand all the risks associated with that. This person's mentioned Doppler Finance over here, 3 to 4.5% guaranteed. They are doing the exact same thing as us at Digital Wealth Partners, the way that they generate those returns. They put the assets up, pool them, mirror them with somebody else, a counterparty. That counterparty draws a line of margin against them and then trades it in a market neutral strategy. Doppler then takes the upside beyond what they pay you. So if they generate 15% like we would potentially on the assets, they're only paying you 3 to 4, guaranteeing you 3 to 4, but only paying you 3 to 4 and keeping the rest of that return for themselves. So if you want all of the upside associated with the income off of your XRP, Digital Wealth Partners is going to be your ticket over there. Minimums for Digital Wealth Partners. We do have a special. We have a promotion going on right now. If you've got at least 300,000 XRP or at least $900,000 in digital assets, we've slashed the AUM fees down to 75 basis points for people that want to onboard within the next 2 weeks. So excited to have that promotion going. We will have another webinar where we go over a lot of that for accredited investors next Monday. If you guys missed the one this Monday, we'll be doing one more for you. And again, this one will actually be recorded this time, and we will get it out to everybody that signed up for the webinar. So if you are accredited, we'd love to have you there in that webinar. If you do have that much XRP or at least that much value in digital assets, we would love to have a conversation with you. I'm not saying we're the perfect fit or we're the right fit or any of that. But if you wanted to have a conversation with us to see what we have for opportunities and how we could work together, you can just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and use the contact us form there and fill it out. This person says, how much do you guys think it will go up to? 2K XRP, what will it be worth by December? This person says $4,000. I mean, it all just depends on global catalyst and what plays out. We got Andrew. he says, Jake, the legend. What's up, man? He says, please give my wife, Taylor, a shout out. Shout out to Taylor. Hey, ma'am. And tell her XRP is going to $1,000 plus. I'm in the mastermind. Can't wait to meet up in Florida. Absolutely, dude. It's meant to operate at $10,000 per XRP. That is, been stated by multiple people that literally built the technology. And, over time, I'm 100% certain that it will get to that. Now, does that happen tomorrow? No. Is it next year? Probably still no. 2027, late 2026 to early 2027. I really do believe derivatives will get tokenized in that area there. And at that point, we should see that $10,000 XRP. This person says $10,000 XRP is it's scam. Not is a scam, but it's scam. It's math. Like, I don't know what you want me to... People that claim things and just say things without any information, I don't really give much credence to. You can look at the total supply. You can look at the available supply is really what you need to look at, not the total supply. And the amount of demand that will be on that would push it to around, I think with the ETFs, 50 to $100 is pretty reasonable. And especially if you had exchanges go illiquid because of Tether and some things going on there, and the reverse carry trade and the back end of the stock market needing to be settled. Again, I think that there's going to be a perfect storm for XRP that causes it to go to, what do you mean? You're late.
Excuse me, I'm trying to take a shower.
Thank you. A wonderful wife with the tea.
Late.
I've got 2 teas. I'll drink both. It'll be fine. It's supply and demand at the end of the day. And if there's very little available supply, you can already see on Coinbase that they've dropped the available supply to below 30 million XRP. The rest of the exchanges will follow suit very soon. And as we see these ETFs roll out, there's not going to be much left. So if you, took economics in high school or college, you saw the, supply and demand graph. If you had a bunch of demand and very little supply, you have to have a very high price. And that's where that's going to happen. We got Mark B. He says, hey, Jake, you mentioned in a recent mastermind that you will be offering 7% loan against XRP held in LLC at Anchorage for accredited investors. When will that 7% loan be available to us? I'm guessing, Mark, that is not a verified amount. I don't have any legal or paperwork or anything on that. That's my speculation based on partnerships that we're curating and finalizing right now before Q4 of this year. I expect that as XRP appreciates and the underwriting against it becomes much less risky, people will be able to loan against it at much lower interest rates. Now, I do see a world where the same counterparty allows you to do borrow and lend against the same collateral without it ever having to move. So this could be done on chain through pseudo accounts, a liquidity pool, and borrow lend, or there might be a counterparty in the real world that is not DeFi that I might know about that would underwrite the risk on that and leave your assets in institutional custody at Anchorage and be willing to use that collateral in a risk-free return type way that generates them somewhere between 4 and 5%. And then they're willing to lend at you somewhere between 6 and 7%. And then your interest rate against the XRP, if you were able to do both, would be like 1 or 2%. Free money. And then you could take that liquidity and go do a bunch of cool stuff with it. And, we talked about liquid staking on the accredited investor webinar. We will go over that again next Monday and what that looks like. But I do believe, especially after XRP gets designated a tier 1 asset by the BIS, 7% is very feasible. We've got Fina. 325. They say, Jake, explain simply what big player bots did with XRP 2 days ago. Heard they sold to trigger small trades, stopped, then bought back quickly, returning to the original price. And there's lots of algorithmic trading that goes on in the market. There's a lot of arbitrage strategies that go on in the market. There's the amount of bot trading in the market is far beyond individual trading. I would say 90 to 95% of the markets are traded by bots at this point, and that's very visible. The reason for that is they take leveraged longs on Bitcoin. When they get liquidated, the whole reason that the rest of the market moves with Bitcoin is they liquidate positions that they took out on other tokens in order to cover their losses on the Bitcoin longs. And that causes the rest of the market to move down with Bitcoin. And that's why the market tends to be correlated together, is they take leveraged longs on Bitcoin and then have to liquidate other positions that they hold in order to cover the losses when there's a move down on Bitcoin. Now, things get much more complicated than that. You can do, option strategies and many things to cover downside risk. And hopefully if you're trading with a bot, it's putting all of those things and calculating all those things to be able to mitigate risk and, generate returns. That's the whole idea behind these algorithms and trading bots. We will have a proprietary trading algorithm for XRP available inside your IRA in the very near future. Looking for go live in November for that one is what my team's telling me now. Just candidly, I'm really frustrated with the amount of time that it's taking to get these strategies to market. Not all my team's fault. They do a very good job. A lot of our partners kind of drag their feet on things for different reasons. And so anyway, just voicing my frustrations on that. Just like you guys want all this stuff, I do too. And I'm working diligently. I mean, literally 18 hours today to get everything done, to make sure that we have it happen for you guys. So anyway, yeah, that's definitely likely a scenario that played out. And I'm sure somebody probably pointed out that scenario over there on Twitter or another platform in order for you to pick it up and ask me about it. We got CJ. He said, Lewis Jackson claimed ROUSD will take value away from XRP's price because XRP alone will be too volatile, hence the use of stablecoins. Lewis is good people. I don't have anything bad to say about Lewis. I will say this though. He often gets on the video and I think just talks to you guys about stuff and talks through ideas that he has and thinks through things on camera, which I can appreciate. I do that with some of my coworkers and mentors. I get on calls and talk to them, and oftentimes I'll have epiphanies in those conversations. And so, I think he might use his YouTube videos to do that. The response that I would have to this comment here is no. But again, I'm just one person. I have an opinion. He's another person that has an opinion. I don't have anything negative to say about him. I don't think that that's the case personally. ROUSD and XRP are complementary. You want the adoption of ROUSD to be able to, create trading pairs with other stuff. And when it's issued on the XRPL or on the EVM sidechain to be able to settle, it'll route it through the DEX. And oftentimes when it's routed through the DEX, it will choose XRP if it's the most liquid asset to be able to settle that value between the counterparties. So the more usage ROUSD gets, we just saw Biddle and VanEck, allow exchange of their funds for ROUSD. We've got almost $1 billion in liquidity for ROUSD. The fastest growing futures market ever is for XRP. In just 3 months, it got over $1 billion on the CME. So, people are going to speculate on different things. I'll say this, I don't get on here. I don't use YouTube to make money. We make a little bit off the YouTube. It does okay. And it's crazy now that, we have over 100,000 followers. But a lot of people and we're guilty of it too. You know, we try to make things that are interesting to catch people's eye, to get them to click on stuff and engage with the content. But the idea here is not to monetize the content. The idea here is to educate people and provide them information so that they can make the most educated decisions for them and their family, and hopefully over the long term build generational wealth and understand what that looks like in digital assets. So I think, you know, my objectives may be a little bit different than many of the other YouTubers, and sometimes that resonates with people and sometimes it doesn't. But any value that is moved into ROUSD, I think will eventually flow through XRP, and XRP will aggregate that value. I know that ROUSD's value will not take away from XRP's value. The whole mission for Ripple is to get global adoption for XRP and a very high price for that asset because it only benefits them. They hold a ton of it on their balance sheet. The Nugget Hunter, he says, when can we set sell orders with Securitize? We have limit orders, my man. You should just reach out to your advisor, and they should be able to direct you on how to do that. I appreciate the question. We got Rob. What's going on, Rob? He says, hi, Jake. Can you name some decentralized wallets on Web3? I would not trust a decentralized wallet. It seems to be all over the internet. Cold wallets are not safe anymore. Thank you. God bless. I am absolutely fine with a so okay. You got Fireblocks and Copper, and you have other institutions that have proprietary blockchains and infrastructure that allow them to issue wallet addresses on multiple chains that they're integrated with. So if you want to call those Web3, I could get with that jazz. But they're not decentralized. They are hosted and run through a centralized party that verifies those transactions and is private permissioned and extremely secure. If there's a decentralized wallet, I wouldn't have anything to do with it. And technically, if you want to get technical, all of these wallets are decentralized because they're on decentralized blockchains. But if somebody's hosting a wallet on a decentralized infrastructure that's not extremely secure and it's open source, you're going to have problems. Somebody is going to hack that wallet and be able to access your stuff, especially a quantum computer. So there's a reason that we've chosen Anchorage and institutional custody. I think that that's the way that everything moves over the long term. Quantum computers will become a reality within the next 2 to 3 years, and they will absolutely be able to hack cold wallets, especially if both keys are exposed. Both if transferring in and transferring out, if you've done both to a cold wallet, both keys are exposed. If you haven't rekeyed that wallet, and it could be hackable by a quantum computer. And I think that's probably sooner than later. It may even be within the next 12 months that we have, a quantum computer capable of doing that. Roberto, what's up, man? He says, due to all the fake Jake accounts, as we approach price appreciation, on the advice of counsel, Jake Claver here, Jake Claver qualified, QFOP, on other social media, I too am removing my real name from all social media. There you go. Look, I think that that's a great way to go about it. We do have people that can wipe you from the internet on the other side of price appreciation and make you a ghost of what you once were online. We have people that can relocate you to a new country and get you citizenship, golden visa, or full citizenship, depending on where you want to go. We have people that can renounce your citizenship for you in multiple jurisdictions, set up bank accounts in Switzerland or other jurisdictions. We're trying to make sure that we have all the pieces in place to be able to give people everything that they're going to need or want from us as a multifamily office on the other side of price appreciation. So I think that that's a great idea to go ahead and start removing some things, decreasing visibility, stepping back in some capacity, and becoming a bit more anonymous online. I think will go a long way when people see price appreciation. Roberto, again, appreciate you, brother. You're Canadian though, because you super chatted in Canadian dollars. He says, I'm getting a lot of offers from people that are willing to help me move my assets to Web3. Well, I'll just go ahead and say this. If me DMs you, it's a scam. I don't DM other people on social media. I don't comment on my own posts and tell you to go to a Web3 wallet or a Telegram channel or a WhatsApp. No, that's not me. If you join the Mastermind, and we would love to have you in the Mastermind, you probably will get a message that looks like it's from me. It's a scam. It's not me. Unfortunately, we can't control Discord. And if anybody messages you on any platform that is pretending to be me, just delete them and report them, please. It is not me. I will never ask you for your XRP. I'm never going to tell you to send your XRP anywhere. I don't even work at Digital Wealth Partners. Okay, I have no access to the accounts over there. I have a full team of fiduciaries that are licensed that will communicate with you through email to get everything set up over there. There will be no other communication channels, never over social media, never over Telegram, never over WhatsApp or anything else. So please be aware of that. Please report scammers. My wife reported 567 fake Jakes yesterday across all of our social media platforms. So we take this very seriously. We are doing as much as we possibly can to mitigate those risks for people, because we know, unfortunately, people are not paying attention and getting hoodwinked. So if you're listening to this, please ignore any DMs from me. It's not me. It is a scam. I will not DM you. Neil, what's going on, Neil? He says, looks like time is just about up for retail purchases, whether that's priced out or availability. Been able to stack what I would consider life-changing for me and my family. Thank you for all the unofficial financial advice. God bless. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate the super chat and your time here this evening. And blessings to you and your family, man. It's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of people that make a lot of money in a very short period of time. And I hope that you've learned at least some things here and started to educate yourself and step into the version of yourself that you need to be in order to manage that level of wealth. Managing millions, tens of millions, billions, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a responsibility. It's not to be taken lightly. At that point, you become a steward of that money. So I think this is a paradigm shift that would help a lot of people. A lot of people think about money very differently when it's somebody else's money and not theirs. They want to protect it. They want to be a fiduciary. But if it's your money, you're like, spend it or do something a little silly with it. If you can shift to being a fiduciary of your own money that you have generated over your lifetime for the next generation, you're thinking about your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and you are a steward of this capital for them, you'll do things to protect it, mitigate risk, and set yourself up and them for success over the long term. Stewardship is a principle that I think should be passed on to the next generation of family office members, or any high net worth individual that's passing that down to their children. If they are going to come into a lot of money, again, it's a lot of responsibility, and it's their job on behalf of the family to protect and grow that wealth and not to do anything silly to mess it up. So hopefully you can instill that in your kiddos. Hopefully, again, some of the stuff that I've said over the years has resonated with people and they've been able to acquire, knowledge for themselves. I really do think one of the reasons it's taken so long for XRP to go is because people needed to learn patience and persistence and many of these other traits that most people that generate significant amounts of wealth garner over whatever period it takes them to build a business or do something else that generates this level of wealth. And if you didn't go through the pain and suffering and the strife associated with that, and it was super easy, easy come, easy go, is what I would say. So I know there's a lot of people here that have just shown up in the last 6-8 months that have been dollar cost averaging over, that period of time. Congratulations, you are here before things really do get exciting. But for those that have been here for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, this has not been an easy journey. You've had to deal with a lot of doubt and have faith during that time in order to persevere and keep things, going. There's been lots of times with the SEC case and other situations where it seemed very bleak, like this wasn't ever going to happen. But now it's looking extremely likely here, potentially even before the end of the year in 2025. Roberto says, where do you think the price could go based on only ETF approvals? 10 to $50 is very reasonable for ETF approvals. It just depends on how much available supply there is on the open market when they get approved here, in 2 or 3 weeks. Wayne, what's up, Wayne? He says, there is no doubt a supply shock is coming. Coinbase is holding nearly 0 XRP. Other exchanges have outflows of 75% since June, around 3 billion left total. This will be epic. Where will exchanges get their XRP once empty? I'm assuming you mean ETFs. Retail, us. They're pretty much, we're pretty much the only people left. And retail might hold maybe 5% of the total supply at this point, 5 billion XRP, maybe a little bit more than that. Uphold mentioned that they've got about 5 billion XRP, and that is retail holding XRP on their platform. So maybe, over the last 3 years, and even this year, I think there's been a lot more XRP acquired by people. People have figured out what's going on. So it might be, somewhere between 5 and 7% of the supply that's held by retail at this point. But as prices move up, that number is going down substantially. Most people are here for $10, $20, $30, $50, $100. If I had to guess, 5 years from now, there might only be 10,000, 20,000 people on the planet holding more than 10,000 XRP, which, is kind of a drop in the bucket when there's 8 billion people on the planet. Imagine being one of those people, to say that you made it through everything and held on and created generational wealth for you and your family. It's going to be a hell of a story that you get to tell when you're a grandpa or grandma, ladies out there too. We got Cole. He says, hey, legend. Hello, legend. What's up, man? Longtime follower. Went by a different name on here previously. What was the #1 song on the Billboard chart and likely being played on the radio the day you were born? That needs to be your anthem. I have no idea. Let's see here. I'm going to give it a Google because I've never even thought about that. It was Everything I Do by Bryan Adams was the #1 song the week I was born. There you go. I don't know if that's my anthem or not, but if you want to know, there you go. We got DFW Mike. What's going on, man? It's good to see you at the event. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, good evening, legend. What's up, man? Another YouTube channel had said something that Coinbase was out of XRP and there was 0 units available. Can you verify that and say hello to the tea lady? I sure will. My wife and I enjoyed meeting her in Dallas at the get-together. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know that Coinbase has 0 XRP. You can verify this yourself. If you want to go to XRP scan, not /amendments, and we will just type in Coinbase up here at the top. Coinbase has like 12 different wallets, 14 different wallets. I would have to click on each one of these wallets to verify how much was in each one. And that would tell me how much was available. Well, wouldn't tell me how much is available, but tell me how much XRP they hold in their wallets, not necessarily how much is available for retail to purchase. So I'm sure that there are some retail people holding XRP on Coinbase. I would get it off of there if you can. Let's see here. This person says, I bought my XRP many times in the last month through Coinbase. Yeah, see, so, there is XRP, on Coinbase. I don't know if it's actually available for you to remove from Coinbase. We got Trident. That's an aggressive name. He says, hey, Jake, just signed up with DWP and have wire processing as we speak. My man. Does this come with Mastermind access? If not, what are the benefits of joining? It's a great question, and I appreciate you asking. So, we have we have a lot of different companies. I actually I was on a podcast from 6 p.m. till about 7:15 before we got on here. And they asked, one of the questions on there was, how many LLCs do you have? We have 26 companies. So, we segregate liability and separate things out. So we have, the family office, and then below that we have Digital Wealth Partners, and then I have another partnership for the Mastermind and events planning business over there. So it does not come with automatic access to that. You just go to beyondbroke.com and use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO get you the first month for $2 there in Social or Carbon 1. You get full access to all of the in-person events. You get access to a lot of the financial education and business resources that we share there that I don't share here publicly. Exclusive access to different things and information that I'm not going to share publicly. We have some private deals that we run there in the group. We have access to lending against your XRP if you're not a Digital Wealth Partners client, which it sounds like you are. So you would go through them to be able to get a loan against your XRP. We also have a asset recovery program that we're rolling out October 1st. So if you are a Carbon 1 client or Carbon 1 member or higher, Carbon 1 or Carbon 2, this is free with your membership. We have a service that you can contact immediately if you are phished or you lose your assets, and they will be able most of the time to recover those assets. The faster you notify them, the faster they will get your assets frozen and back to your wallet. So it's not quite like insurance because it's not like there's a payout if they're not able to do it or you lose the assets. But it is a way to be able to recover your assets if you do have something bad happen. I had a very prominent individual call me this morning associated with the Republican Party, stirred up that they had lost a significant amount of their XRP, and we got them immediately with our team over there. And I believe they're in the process of freezing and recovering those assets for that individual. So if that sounds like a service that you would want, extra protection on your assets, the ability to have somebody to call and for them to be able to take action and get your assets back for you, Carbon 1 is a great option. And again, it's just $2 to try it out for the first month. If you use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar at beyondbroke.com. We also have weekly town halls, 2 of those. And then we have other people come up and talk about unique things, investments, real estate, private equity, insurance, estate planning, like all the stuff that, I know enough about to be dangerous. We have experts come in and speak to those topics. How to improve your credit. We have that one in there also. We have multiple people in the community that do all of those things and can help you. I may even have a gentleman who just emailed me a while ago, do charitable remainder trusts, come up and talk about the different opportunities that we're going to be able to put forward for those. We got Teddy. It's Teddy B. What's up, my man? He says, when speculating XRP price with insiders, was the facial expression more he's out of his mind, or how did he know? Ever ask Ripple insiders whether your B to M2 business model makes sense for XRP expectation? They know who I am and what we do, which was a surprise to me. So the first time I ever met Brad Garlinghouse in person, I didn't even go up and try to talk to him at the first XRP Vegas that I attended. He was swarmed by people. He had 5 security guards around him. I'm like, I'll see Brad at something else. And sure enough, about 4 months later, I met him in person at CoinAlts in 2023 in October there, which we're attending CoinAlts again this year in San Francisco during SF Fun Week. That should be pretty awesome. We actually have a Mastermind event there in San Francisco the Sunday before that. So if you want to participate in that, you can join the Mastermind, and we have another in-person event out there in San Francisco. Very nice venue. So anyway, met him there, and when I walked up to him, he just stuck his hand out and said, "Hey, Jake, how are you?" And I'm like, "You know who I am?" And then, we've talked and met multiple other times. And I will say this about Brad. Brad knows who you, like if he's met you before, he will remember your name. He will call you by your name. And it could be years between seeing him, and he knows exactly who you are. Probably one of the best people that I've ever seen at doing that. And I really need to ask him his trick for that, because I will remember your face for the rest of my life, and what you told me about you and your family. Your name goes through me like a bullet, unless I say it 3 times. If I can say it 3 times in the conversation, I remember it. But I need to be better about that, because he's really good at it, and it leaves an impression. You know what I mean? So anyway, when it comes to insiders and their facial expressions, there's been many people at Ripple that I've said things to, and they were like, it's not a you're out of your mind. It's like, I can't talk about that. Let's change the subject quickly. That's the energy I got, right? And maybe I wanted to get that energy. There's always self-fulfilling bias, you know what I mean? So take it with a grain of salt. But I've had, it's not just one conversation that's been that way. If it was one, I'd be like, it's been more than 10. Where I've said something and people are like, can't say anything about that, but I will talk about this, Prez Nick says, Jake, my guy, any updates for us on XRP and reverse carry trade? I know everything is event driven. However, in your opinion, is October looking like the month? October is indeed looking like the month. There are so many things lining up for October, and the ETFs going live. Could they kick it? Sure. I said on a podcast earlier today that I feel like, 95% certain that all of these catalysts are going to play out here in 2025. And again, that's what gives me the confidence to make the bet that I did publicly, that XRP would be $750 by the end of the year. We'll see if I'm right on that or not. I don't think people are going to be mad at me if XRP is 50 or 100 bucks by the end of the year. But if it is 1,000, I'll be very happy to win $3.5 million on that bet. Let's see here. Nothing new on the reverse carry trade. Still just waiting on Bank of Japan to raise interest rates. And again, I do think it's going to be oil that they point to as the catalyst. You've got Off the Grid Hero. They said, can I quit my job already? XRP 750 November. That sounds great to me, my man. I'll say this. You make a good point here, because I think a lot of people are just going to immediately quit their job. I would hold off on doing that. And you might go, well, why? Well, if you work with us, it might be a quarter or more before you get cash flow off of that XRP. And that's not because I don't want to pay people faster. It's not because I don't want to use DeFi yet. I am concerned about the risks with DeFi, and we want to make sure slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And we have so much at stake at this point that I want to make sure we do it right. And so it might be a little bit before you get the cash flow or the passive income off of your XRP. Now, we may have products in Q4 here that pay out sooner. I'm hopeful for that. But as things sit today, it's a quarter away to get your first paycheck off of XRP. So it's not going to hurt to go to work just a little bit longer and have a little jingle in your pocket. And if anybody pisses you off, you just walk out. You know what I mean? Like, all right, well, not worried about this place. I'm here because I can be and I want to be. But if you don't want me here or you want to piss me off, I don't have to be here. You know, it's a very different mental position than having to go to work and having to have that to pay bills. But I would challenge you. I would say, you know, doesn't have to be that much longer, but I would continue working my job at least 3 to 4 months after price appreciation. And if you've told everybody at your work, that's a little different story. But if you've kept it on the DL and you can just walk in smug and sit down at your desk and do a good job and not have to fret a whole lot or have the stress, it's a very freeing feeling to have what they call in the business FU money. 10 million is about that point where you're pretty well set. Legend. This is MIF 007. They say, where do you expect the crash to happen this year, next year, after midterm elections? Do you expect XRP to also crash or take off? I think XRP will move in the opposite direction of everything else. I think they'll roll liquidity into XRP through the ETFs while everything else is burning. And I think people will lose their minds. I don't think they're going to understand what's going on while XRP is rising and everything else is crashing. Now, is there a small period of time where XRP, you know, goes down with the rest of the market before it does rise very quickly? Possible. Am I going to play with that fire? Nope. I'm just going to be sitting pretty in position in a cold wallet in institutional custody, earning cash on the XRP, kicking back, relaxing, knowing that I'm in a winning spot. And then after all the dust settles, I'll figure out what the opportunities are, and then we'll start deploying capital on those. But everything else is, you know, if the reverse carry trade unwinds the way that I believe it's going to be 50% drawdown across all markets. It's going to be very ugly. But you want that too. And the reason you want that is the cost of living and everything's so high. Imagine if real estate crashed by 50%. A lot of people that have levered up and bought a lot of real estate would be upset by that, but it'd be really affordable. People would be able to buy it. There would be a lot of opportunity for people that had cash or liquidity in that situation to pick up some deals. And old Uncle Warren knows what's up. He's got $400 billion sat over there in treasuries and cash equivalents and cash in order to be able to pounce when the time's right and the reverse carry trade does unwind. So I just watch what the big players do. There's a lot of people out there that talk their book. I watch the actions they're taking. That's how you can tell what's really going on, because there's a lot of people that will talk their book and tell you one thing and do something else. We've seen lots of people do that in crypto for an extended period of time, including Jamie Dimon and Chase. You know, they were saying Bitcoin was bad the whole time, yet they were buying it over the counter, setting up their OTC desk, building their infrastructure for blockchain and Ethereum, building Onyx, you know, like, come on. We got Jayhawk Nation. They say, thoughts on government shutdown and the effect on the Clarity Act. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. This might be Brad for all we know. Right here, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Probably not, but maybe. Thoughts on government shutdown and the effect on the Clarity Act. You know, I think they've positioned XRP perfectly. It is the only thing that has clarity until the Clarity Act is passed to be able to be used in the capacity that's necessary to be able to facilitate a solution in a liquidity crisis. It's the only thing that has clarity here in the US and would have enough liquidity if certain things were to play out to get the adoption at scale. It's the first one in and the first one out of the fire. And so until that Clarity Act is passed, there's really not any competition for XRP. And I'm pretty confident that it's meant to be that way. If you wanted a front runner, if you wanted something to aggregate almost everything and all the market share before other people were able to compete, they've done a really good job of orchestrating that. So that's my personal opinion. I think a government shutdown could absolutely push the Clarity Act out past when the XRP ETFs launch. And when the ETFs roll and there's enough liquidity in XRP, it will be adopted at scale and used in a utility fashion that we're all hoping for. So I think it's a setup. And I think that would be the perfect excuse to push that out just far enough to get XRP to the place it needs to be before everything else gets clarity. Lawson Massey says, any updates on where the reverse carry trade is? It's going to be trickle flood. You're already starting to see people start to divest from positions, selling into volume. The smart money is starting to get out because they see the writing on the wall. I know a family office. We work with them. They're worth about $400 million. And they alluded to this earlier today. They are hearing whispers, talking to people that have borrowed money, that are exiting those positions carefully, not to cause alarm, and looking to repay those loans expeditiously. Now, when it becomes known that everybody is concerned about this, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And everybody always overreacts. This was something else I was talking about on the podcast I was on earlier today. Human nature is exuberance and extreme fear. And things revert to the mean eventually. But on the other side of the implementation of AI and this blockchain stuff, I'm very confident that a lot of those, there will be some governors put in place to mitigate the volatility that we tend to cause as humans, which I think is a good thing. There's less money to be made in those situations because, you know, you won't be able to, the amplitude of the volatility will be truncated. But there will always be volatility. As long as people are involved, there's always going to be emotion. But there could be less volatility if we involve this other stuff. So anyway, reverse carry trade, I do think is coming soon. And people are already starting to sell their positions and make their way back over there. But as soon as that's found out, it's game over. We got B-Man. He says, what's your thoughts on market exchange, democratization, prime, borrowing, lending service? Man, what a mouthful. Any plans on utilizing their services for XRP in the future? Thanks. What are your thoughts on markets, exchange, decentralized prime, borrowing, lending service? I think that there's a different prime broker that we might be able to work with at some point in the future. That is not decentralized, that I think most people would be okay with. So we'll see if that's the case or not. But over the long term, a lot of this stuff's going to become decentralized and be on open networks. AMMs, I'm really interested to see how they actually govern these. Especially if it is trading securities and people are arbitraging that market. You would need a broker-dealer license to be able to facilitate that. You need a transfer agent license in order to be able to do that. You need an ATS, or alternative trading system, in order to be able to do that in a tokenized manner. Right now, you need a special purpose broker-dealer in order to be able to do it. And there's only, T0 and what's the other one that everybody hates? I can't think of the name of it, but everybody hates it. I think they'll change it to just regular broker dealers that are able to work with tokenized securities. But the AMMs are interesting. If you had more than 50 million in liquidity in an AMM, I do think you're probably going to need oversight by somebody. the SEC is not going to just let that exist freely in an open market with no guardrails. Maybe it's embedded in infrastructure. Maybe it's a permission to network where, you know, there's only accredited investors able to participate in certain things. The liquidity pools will be that way. Liquidity pools on the XRPL here in the US, you will have to be accredited. In my opinion, I know people are going to be upset about that. If you make a bunch of money in XRP, you're going to be accredited. You'll be fine. But talking to the regulators and Ripple and many others, that's the sense that I get. I would love to be wrong. I'd love there to be democratization of access to stuff. But until all of these smart contracts are insured, they're done out of institutional custody, and we have a lot better protections around them, I'm still very hesitant to participate. And I would rather just do it the old-fashioned way with trusted financial institutions. Talked to a very large one this morning. Appreciate Andrews Thomas for the super chat here. We got Kenneth, Mr. Williams. He says, legend. Dude, you get a chance to get with your team about finding out if 3 to 4% is 100% LTV. Also, when will this product launch? Q4. And it'll be 100% LTV. Honest Aim, what's going on, brother? Good to see you here. Appreciate you guys coming to the event. Always good to see you and the wifey. He says, legend. You guys with the legend deal, man. Thanks. We're in debt for all that you do for us. We have tickets. We're excited to go to the November 7th to 9th Wealth Training Rockefeller Method. Does your team present? Still tickets. Hi to the tea lady. I believe there are still some tickets available to that. People in the mastermind are going to know what they're talking about. It is an exclusive event for digital wealth partners, clients, and people in the mastermind that are accredited and have larger amounts. It's going to be most applicable for those people. I'm not saying you can't go if, you know, you've got less XRP. We don't exclude people. You just, like the insurance policy and the equity stripping trust, the equity stripping, a component of the spendthrift trust, that'll all be explained, you know, on the Rockefeller Method that's put together by Laughlin, who's our paralegal partner, and we're, you know, putting that event on with. I'll be up there on stage speaking about digital assets and protecting those and what that looks like for estate planning and mitigating risk and loss while growing and preserving your wealth over the long term. And they will be talking more about the traditional side of stuff. But, you know, marrying those topics there at that event, really excited about that one. That's here in Dallas, November 7th through the 9th. And we look forward to seeing you guys there. Tickets, I think for Mastermind people are, there's a coupon code. Curious George says, hey, Jake, original client 2023. Hey, man. Finally consolidated all my position to XRP. Now in the top 0.02, big spender percent. See you in Monaco. I love that, dude. I mean, I've been all XRP for a long time. Ooh, I'll tell you, well, I'll share it with you guys. I normally keep this stuff for the mastermind, but I'll share it publicly tonight because I'm excited about it. We got to talk to one of the best VCs in the world earlier today. They have the highest performing, the second highest performing venture capital fund in history. They are super bullish on Hash. You know, and I told you guys, it's the only thing that I've bought besides XRP in the last 3 years. It reminds me very much of an XDC type situation. I think it's up at 4 cents is where Hash is today. It's a long play. It's not like it's going to make a bunch of money tomorrow, you know, but I believe in it. They're tokenized. You know, Mike Cagney, I had him on the channel. He was fantastic, very intelligent man. Figure Markets has gone public. You know, you've seen the liquidity come in over there. Super excited for them. Congratulations on their success. Hash is the token for provenance, which is the blockchain that they use to tokenize collateralized debt obligations or mortgages that they roll up together. There's also, another group that's doing insurance, life insurance tokenization on that chain. We will be looking to potentially partner with them for the life insurance policies that we're issuing. We do have the option for life insurance if it's something you're interested in. It should be part of your estate planning. Right now, a lot of our clients just have a term policy that's convertible. Makes a lot of sense doing it that way. It's cheap today. You underwrite your policy now. You make sure that your health is good and you're going to be able to keep that underwriting. So imagine 2 years from now, you get some, health problem that you didn't see coming. And if you don't have a policy in place that's already underwritten, it's going to be very difficult for you to get, a whole life policy or step into what you need to do the infinite banking stuff. So, especially if you have descendants or loved ones, I think it's a great way to be able to protect them and provide them some assurance if, God forbid, something happened to you. Death is never a fun topic to talk about, but life insurance as a financial product is really cool. It's sexy. So if you're interested in that, you can go to xurelegacy.com, XURE legacy.com. And Carl's information is there on the webpage, and you can book a time with him. Just shoot him an email. I think it's just carl@xurelegacy.com. Again, that's XURE legacy.com. And again, not a whole lot of people necessarily need life insurance right now, but if you do want term that's convertible and put things in place, I think it's a good option for a lot of people today, especially if you have kiddos. We got the El Shermanator. What's up, man? He says, good evening, Beef, the legend. Sure, looking forward to seeing you, Rocky, the XRP spinner necklace again, if the time is right. Feels like all right that things are happening, living the BB DWP dream. I love that, dude. Appreciate you being part of the community and wanting to work with us. It's great to have you in the mastermind. And if that's something that interests you guys, you can always go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, or the abbreviation for month. Gets you the first month there in the mastermind for $2 in social or Carbon 1. We got Spits the Truth 1. Interesting name. So, hey, Jake, love your work. I appreciate your commentary. I am in Australia. Can I bring my XRP holdings to your firm? Taxable implications, etc. Your feedback is appreciated. We'd love to work with you. We have a lot of Australian clients. There's many people that just happen to be, up at this time because I do these late. And I think they're in Australia. What is it, Aussie time? Perth is a little bit further along in the day than Sydney. So let's see, Australia. What is the time there? 1 in the afternoon. Very nice. Yeah. So 10 p.m. here, Central Standard Time, 1 p.m. there in Australia. Yeah, we were happy to work with you as long as the assets are held in an entity. They can be in a self-managed super fund. They can be in a living trust, a family trust there in Australia. Or you can move them offshore. We have people to connect you with in Dubai that can structure things there for you. Or we can get you, set up in the Cook Islands, British Virgin Islands. There's a bunch of different places if you want to get offshore with your assets. But they do have to be held in one of those things. If you are an Australian, you can reach out to Consensus Layer or Tax on Chain there in Australia, and they do a great job of helping you structure your estate or mitigate taxes. There are partners that we have over there down under, and we can definitely work with you on the wealth management side to manage the assets, protect them, and put them to work as long as you are accredited by U.S. standards. We got Matthew. What's up, man? He says, Jake, thank you for all that you do. When the reverse carry trade happens with XRP, will XRP drop a lot with the rest of the market also? Can you talk about the Euro announcement that they are going to officially use XRP? It all starts in London, my man. yeah, the euro's a big deal. The pound's a big deal. All of these large CBDCs are going to use XRP, whether they work with Ripple or R3, it doesn't matter. They're going to be able to be settled through XRP. And the reverse carry trade, when that happens, I don't know, is the answer. Is it going to be a buying opportunity? For a lot of stuff, yes. For XRP, I don't know. I think it would be interesting, if people were able to catch a falling knife and get some XRP at a low price. I don't see that happening. I think they're going to roll liquidity from the ETFs into XRP while that's going on, and XRP is going to be skyrocketing higher while everything else is burning to the ground. Again, just one guy's opinion, not financial advice. You do you, my man. We got Alex. He says, if something happens to Brad Garlinghouse, do you think that would have a major impact on Ripple moving forward? Brad's trying to retire soon. Ripple's his last hurrah. Like, love Brad, but he's got some gray hairs on him. And he just got married again. Like, he's trying to enjoy the rest of his life. So, and he's already a billionaire. It'd probably be a trillionaire when XRP really does, appreciate like I think it's going to. Got that prenup. Anyway, I do think that he'll probably leave Ripple on the other side of an IPO or whenever they go public. And they'll move in somebody else into his position and he'll pass the baton on. I don't know who that's going to be. There's a lot of people there at Ripple that could move up into that position. I don't know that Monica Long would be able to step into that spot. Stu's their legal counsel. Definitely not David. They would probably have to bring somebody in from outside. But knowing Ripple and knowing how strategic they've been about everything else, I'm sure that they probably already have somebody picked for when that time comes. So, and I don't why would anybody want to hurt Brad? Brad's awesome. He's never mean to anybody. I think I've heard him cuss. He's funny when he cusses. It's always for emphasis. It's never derogatory or accusatory or at someone. It's always like to add emphasis to something. It's normally pretty funny when he cusses. But yeah, I don't know anybody that dislikes Brad. Even Bitcoin maxis don't really dislike Brad. So I don't know why something would happen to him other than the fact he just retires and goes on and enjoys his life with his lovely new bride. We got Gen X Crypto Legend. A great webinar Monday for those of us in DWP's income fund and beyond broke. What's the priority? Number one right now, collateralization, liquidity and cold storage, or increase fund allocation. All of those are going to depend on your long-term goals, which sounds like a cop-out. I know when I say that type of stuff, people are like, come on, man, just give me something real. It's difficult without context around your personal situation for me to provide you really what's going to be best for you and your family. Any one of those could be the way to go. It just depends on your short-term and long-term goals for what you're looking to accomplish. So, if you have lower risk tolerance, the other thing, again, if we're going to have these yield products, you may want to hold or continue to add to your XRP position to be able to participate in that and kind of diversify across the income opportunities that we're going to have. If you do put assets into the funds, there is a lockup period on that. I won't talk about, all the, specifics here. But if you want to learn more about that, you can absolutely reach out to digitalwealthpartners.net, go to the contact us page, and they can give you a full breakdown of all of the opportunities we have there for accredited investors. We've got Let's Go Muddin. I like it. They say, hey, brother, hope all is well. How do I borrow from my asset? Can I borrow half? 45% LTV is the highest that, we can go higher than that. One of our lenders will do more. They'll do 50%. The interest rate's not as good, and the turnaround time's much slower. If you are in the Mastermind, Even if you are not a DWP client, you can borrow against your XRP. I am not advocating for that or telling you to do it or championing that in any way. We created that relationship for people that do want to take leverage against their XRP and provide them liquidity. So when you join the mastermind, there's a channel in the FAQ section at the Discord that walks you through how to borrow against your XRP if you want to do it. So, again, just be aware of the risks associated with that. Taking that high of a margin against the asset could put you into liquidation if we do see a significant downturn in the market. There are absolutely risks associated with it. So just make sure that you can cover the interest payments, on and on and on. But if you do have your assets in a Wyoming LLC, you can borrow as little as, you can put up as little as $5,000 of your XRP and borrow, call it $2,300 or $2,250 against that $5,000 worth of XRP. So a Wyoming LLC is a big benefit, especially when working with counterparties that deal with crypto. It's going to provide you more opportunities than anything else. And that's, again, why we set things up there in Wyoming. So if you do want a digital asset holding company to be able to manage your digital assets, and you do want to work with us to do that, again, you can do it yourself. You're going to need EIN, articles of organization, registered agent, certificate of good standing, the template that we provide for the operating agreement. You're going to want a service that does, virtual office along with the corporate veil service, and the annual renewals and fees and compliance, along with the meeting minutes and board resolutions and equity issuance and all the fun stuff. You're gonna want to make sure it's a single member LLC or a family limited partnership to be able to make sure you're mitigating taxes and not getting a step up in basis when you transfer the assets in there. We also provide you an SOP or step-by-step process on how to move your assets into the LLC or fund that LLC without any tax implications. Try to do everything end to end for everything that you would need. And we also have recommendations for banking partners. So if that sounds cool to you, we do charge $2,000. Ticket price is normally $4,000. But if you use the code 50 off 50 OFF DAG, like Digital Ascension Group LLC, that's 50 off DAG LLC at digitalfamilyoffice.io. It gets you everything end to end, everything you'd possibly want for the LLC for $2,000. And again, I wouldn't even start to look at that until you have at least $50,000 to $80,000 in digital assets. If you have less than that, don't spend $2,000 with us, please. I would much rather you buy more crypto or use it on something else. It's not going to be that beneficial unless you do have a fairly substantial holding. It provides you creditor protection, and so if somebody were to sue you, you were in somebody. If you maintain the corporate veil and everything's done the right way, it'll keep those assets out of your estate and make sure that they're protected from creditors. KJ says, "Crypto Sensei, that is a different channel, sir." Seems to think the market cap multiplier for XRP will stop around 2 trillion. What are your thoughts? There's a lot of things I don't necessarily agree with everybody on, and that's okay. Everybody has their own opinions. They can do math and make things look the way they want to. I understand why it's hard for people to comprehend a market cap more than that. There's only a few companies in the world that have achieved, a $3 to $4 trillion market cap. These are not companies, though. They're protocols. It's a network that moves value globally. So market cap isn't a very good metric. I think that there'll be some type of liquidity metric that comes out later on. Maybe I'll invent one. That's much more representative of the value that's moving over the protocol rather than market cap. Market cap assumes that all shares are outstanding and available, like a stock. These assets don't work that way. There's available supply and total supply, and they're two very different numbers. All of these shares that are on the stock market are available shares. So I know there's a lot of people out there in conjecture around market cap, but many people just don't understand the dynamics of this asset class versus traditional stocks. And they're going to continue to not comprehend until it happens. When the market cap of some of these digital assets is in the quadrillions, they're going to lose their mind. They're going to not understand how that's possible until it becomes a normal thing. And then, then there'll be the next thing that goes to the pentillions, We've got DRM. They say, good evening, sir. My wife and I are in our early 60s riding this XRP train to early retirement. The Canton network has spooked us a bit. Is there merit to our concern? Thanks for all that you do. Enjoy your YouTube. No. Let me see here. Canton network. I've looked at this before. Somebody else brought it up. Finance flows, capital markets meets the power of blockchain. So there's going to be a bunch of these other applications that are for specific use cases. I mean, you've got Velo and Stronghold and ZBEC and you get Polymesh, Polymarkets. They tokenized, stocks, real world assets. The longest, well, it's not the longest standing blockchain, but one of the top 5 longest standing blockchains is the XRPL. They've been trialing this infrastructure for 13 years, and really longer than that if you really know the story. So if you understand that and you know that the banks are only going to use what they are for sure on, they're not going to take something that just popped up last night or even a couple years ago. Even Cardano and HBAR and a few of these things that came out in 2018 still haven't given themselves the full credit that they need to in order to get adoption at scale for financial institutions. I think HBAR is pretty close, or I mean, I know they are because they've partnered with Swift. Chainlink, similar. They've been around long enough and have a long enough standing track record to know that they're not going to go down. But this stuff, I don't know when, this was created. It says 2025, Canton Network, all rights reserved. There's actually another gentleman here in Canton, in my little town that, built some stuff like this. And I don't know if this is his thing or not, but I would not worry about it. I'm XRP'd. Jake, my man with the plan. I received an email from DAG about Laughlin providing registered agent compliance services. I have an LLC through DFO. Are these services included in the formation fees? If you paid the $2,000 after July of this year, yes. If you paid for an LLC before that, no. So if you want to jump to the front of the line and go ahead and get your corporate veil, we're still rolling this out in phases to everybody else. But if you want to jump to the front of the line, you can go ahead and pay your annual fee and hop in and get that going with them. But it is legit. That was a legitimate email. Group 1, Gavin, thank you for the super chat. They say, imagine being 35 years of age, a pioneer in the space, and strapping on your seatbelt for the largest scandal in living history. Congratulations, bro. Appreciate that, man. Surreal. That's the only way I can describe my life most of the time. I try to view myself third party, which sounds a little bit weird, just saying it out loud. But I really try to appreciate everything that's going on in my life. I'm very grateful. I feel very blessed to be in a position to provide value for other people and wake up and do what I love every single day and run at it full bore. Never get tired of it. I wouldn't rather have it any other way. feel like I'm in alignment with my purpose and why I'm here. Juan, he says, what's the downside to Ledger Live Wallet? I'm considering Decent as the primary wallet. Does this create a taxable event? No, it'd just be like, moving cash from one bank account to another. It's still the same asset. It'd be like moving gold from one vault to another. Again, still the same asset, no taxable event. Ledger has some things going on that concern me. Just some of our clients have had some issues. We'll see what ends up shaking out. I'm not talking bad about them. I think they have had a good product. There's a lot of people that have used it for a long time and not had any issues. I like Decent better. One, the user interface, the biometric, the breadth of assets that it holds. It's a lot more user-friendly than Ledger. And they now have XRP staking and some other stuff over there on Decent that's not available through Ledger. So not saying to use that. I'm not condoning it. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying it's there and that they're innovative. I've had them on the channel. I trust them. I think that they have a good product in comparison to others on the market. And full disclosure, we're an affiliate. I get like $5 if you buy a wallet through the link. I do not have sponsors on this channel. I get an email every day. I get DMs every day about sponsoring the channel and pumping some meme coin and all this other crazy stuff. I'm not an affiliate for anybody. We have our own companies. We talk about those on here. I interview people on the podcast and advocate for their stuff if they're legitimate. Decent has really been the only group that I've felt like had a good enough product and stood by, their product well enough to talk about and advocate for here on the channel outside of all of our own stuff. So again, I don't ever want to be misrepresentative or, shysty, any of that stuff. We are an affiliate. I get like $5 if you buy a wallet. But I do think it is, in the top 3 wallets that are available out there. And probably the best one if you have multiple digital assets. We've got 180 Auto. They say XRP legend. Thinking about the news of Coinbase cold wallet depletion, at which point does Ripple stop selling XRP to the exchanges? At any time, my man. They've sold about 300 million onto the market each month this year and re-escrowed about 700 million onto the back end of the note. In October, they could just decide to not sell any. Wonder what that would do to the price. William Brooks, what's going on, brother? He says, hey, Jake, I've been familiar with you for a while, but just recently started to really listen to you. Many are planning for ongoing 4-year cycle. Do you think that will end or continue? I think you're going to get both, William. I think, Bitcoin will continue to have a 4-year cycle, and anything that is correlated to Bitcoin that doesn't decouple as a utility-driven asset or for a use case outside of just speculative activity and trading will have a different price pattern after this cycle. Litecoin, Doge, Sheeb, I think there's going to be some of these meme coins or culture coins, along with, other replicas of Bitcoin Cash, and some of the other ones that still follow a cyclical pattern based on Bitcoin. I think XRP, XLM, HBAR, XDC, Quant, Algorand, Ondo, Velo, Stronghold, and many others will likely decouple from Bitcoin's trading action. But Bitcoin will continue to have a cyclical pattern as long as it persists. JV Ra says, will there be an opportunity to buy XRP at lower prices when the reverse carry trade unwinds? And is there a mass liquidation? Should I save some cash for that? I'm not, VJ. I backed up the truck yesterday and today. So you do you. I'm not, but I've also been here a long time too. So if you're new here and you haven't had the same opportunity, I can appreciate wanting lower prices. Very confident that's not going to happen though. And if it does, it's not going to be in a period where you're going to be able to execute a buy order. In my personal opinion, I think there's going to be a liquidity crisis with Tether when that takes place, and large buy orders are very unlikely to execute if it's not tethered to XRP. When can we see sets? Oh, we already did that one, my man. Kick me up in the chat here. We're going to go all the way to the bottom, then we're going to work our way back up to close out the night for the last 30 minutes here. So if you haven't super chatted yet, please don't. Cut them off. Don't spend the money. I'm not going to answer it tonight. If you do want to DM me, all you got to do is join the mastermind, and I will answer your questions there. Just go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar. Here you go. Living Legacy, the man, the myth, the legend. He's put it here at the bottom. So again, there's the website, and there is the promo code if you guys want to join. And you can DM me. That I will not DM you. I will never DM you. But if you want to DM me, I will get to your question within the next week or so and get you a message back. But I am going to cut off the super chats tonight because I don't want people spending money and not getting their question answered. So I'm going to go up from here, off the bottom. We got Kevy's World 27. They say, hey, Jake, appreciate you. Where can I custody my XRP to earn dollars? Since I don't have enough for your platform. Also, I have a decent wallet. Anybody that sends you Web3 wallet, it is a scam. Do not send your assets there. Web3 wallet is a scam. QFS is a scam. Flare airdrop is a scam. All of that's a scam. The only things that are legitimate, well, I shouldn't even say that because I don't know how those are going to turn out. I know for sure we're legitimate. We're a regulated entity. The SEC is oversight on us. We're audited, all the stuff. Okay. Cost me, well, not me, but our firm, a little over $250,000 a year just to do all the compliance associated with the funds that we run. So, it's reasonable now. We've got over $250 million in XRP put into the funds, generating returns for our clients. We are by far the largest player in the market that's aggregated XRP and earning yield on the XRP for our clients. 5 times larger than anyone else that's doing it on chain. It's done in a very safe, bankruptcy remote, insured, segregated, awesome, non-risky, non-smart contract way. So Kev, I wish there was something that I could tell you I'm absolutely sure on that's not our stuff. I don't have oversight on it. I've talked to Doppler and we talked to XLR. Both are great. I think they're great people. I think they have cool products. If you are here in the US, you're geo-fenced. You cannot participate. That is a securities offering because they're doing the exact same thing as us to be able to generate returns like I talked about before. And they're not paying you all of the returns. They're only paying you a portion of them and keeping the rest for themselves, which, cool. I get that. It's a good model. If you want all of the upside on the returns for your assets, we can help you out with that. And again, I apologize. We do have limits. There's compliance and constraints for us. Believe me, I'm working to, get there where it's fully, we have it available for everybody. I'm working on it. If you do have at least 300,000 XRP or at least 900,000 in digital assets, we are running a promotion on the AUM cost over there at Digital Wealth Partners. We dropped that down to 75 basis points. So if that sounds cool to you and you want to learn more about how to earn returns on your XRP or borrow against it, have insurance on it, have segregated bankruptcy remote accounts with an advisor, your spouse is on the account, you've got beneficiaries on the account, they don't need to know anything about crypto and everything's taken care of, just like Schwab, then go over to digitalwealthpartners.net and fill out the contact us form. And we would love to get you in on that special to make sure that you're locked in at that lifetime rate of 75 basis points, which is much, much lower than the 2% we normally charge on anything less than 5 million. Amber Russell says, can XRP coins go up in price if sitting in a cold wallet instead of on Kraken, for example? this is a common misconception that I see people have. If you took your stock certificate out of the stock market and put it in your safe, what's that stock worth? Whatever it's trading for on the stock market. So the answer is yes. It changes. It's always worth what it's worth. Just like gold, because you took it off the COMEX and you took possession of that futures contract and you move that gold into your safe, it's still worth the same amount as the rest of the gold globally on the marketplace. And that's effectively what you're doing when you move assets off of an exchange into your cold wallet. You're just taking ownership of that bearer asset. So, that's alongly and legally, and are not doing anything illegal that could cause losses to their clients. This person says, Jake, the GOAT, explain borrowing against an asset and how it does it. How does the debt pay off? You make the interest payments just like you would on a house or something else. If it's life insurance, you don't have to pay that back. That's a different concept because the death benefit, the cash value of the policy, would pay off whatever you borrowed against it. The interest rate on these loans is like a hard money loan. You'd be borrowing against it. It's interest only with a balloon payment at the end, and you could roll the note. You could refinance it at a later date when the assets have appreciated. You could draw down more debt. You would still have to service the monthly payment on it, though. So you need to put that capital either set enough aside to be able to cover the interest payments, or put it to work somewhere where it's generating enough interest to be able to cover the interest rate payments plus more. Many people just buy more XRP, is what I've seen in my experience. This is a good and bad way of doing it. Again, not advocating for any of this. But if you did have more XRP, you could definitely meet the capital calls. You could lower your LTV pretty substantially if you borrowed against XRP 45%, bought more XRP with it, and put that up against the loan. Now your LTV is going to be like 20 or 30%, and you're going to get the appreciation on the XRP. And as long as the appreciation on the XRP outpaces the inflation or the interest that you're accruing, it's a good trade. Now, you still have to service that debt on a monthly basis. So hopefully you have a business or some other income or whatever else in order to be able to cover those obligations. Because if you can't, then they will take a portion of your assets to cover those losses. So just make sure you know what you're doing, understand the risks. If you're working with a wealth advisor, they can explain all that to you, and help you, do that in the best way or the most responsible way possible. This person says, do you think that in order to wipe out the US debt, stable coins will crash Bitcoin and Tether and increase XRP value? You got it, my man. That is exactly the end scenario that I think is going to happen. Anthony, I don't know that that'll be the reason Tether crashes, but I think it's going to be a reverse carry trade that causes whatever's on Tether's balance sheet to go poorly, and then it'll depeg, and then there'll be a bank run on Tether, which has implications for Bitcoin and stock market and everything else. Anthony says, what's up, Jake? Staten Island, aka Staten Italy, wants to know when XRP is going to fly. Sunday night dinners for Jake for life when it happens. Appreciate that, man. October's looking pretty juicy. I'm excited for October, and I'm excited for the rest of the year here. I'm really excited all the way from now until 2030, but I like the rest of the year for price appreciation. Again, 95% sure that we're going to see the reverse carry trade unwind this year. Curious George says, let's go. Woo woo. Do feel like the XRP peeps that will stay in for the long haul see the crack in the matrix, aka awake? I do. Thoughts? The amount of manipulation that the government does with the psyops that they create is pretty ridiculous. XRP is definitely in the psyops. In a psyop, you would include real and false information for plausible deniability on things. And it's difficult to discern what's real and what's not in the psyops that are out there currently. But all of this stuff is orchestrated in order to get the broader public to have emotional responses to things in order to drive them to do certain things, because they know most people don't have enough, people aren't educated enough to think critically. And I'm not saying that as, mean or derogatory. I just mean in general, most of the people that I have seen, not necessarily XRP people or people I deal with on a daily basis, but the majority of the population have a visceral response to whatever it is, and they can't think strategically 3 to 5 to 10 steps ahead, and why the media or the government or the propaganda that's being pushed on you is being pushed on you so that you will have that visceral reaction and do certain things. And it doesn't matter which side of the aisle is doing it. It's really two strings or two wings on the same bird, is my opinion. I don't really get political on this channel. But when you say people are awake, I don't think people really have any idea what's going on. I think that this is much, much larger than even I realize most of the time. And I've just seen bits and pieces of what leads me to believe that. So, I would love to say that we're woke and everybody's awake that's invested in XRP. But the reality of it is, I have been really blessed to be in rooms and have conversations with very unique individuals and see things that the public it's not available. And even I do not comprehend the level of significance that this will have and how profound the effect of this transition is going to be over the next 100 years on the world. So I know that's probably not the answer you thought you were going to get, but it's the answer I'm going to give tonight. We got 15 minutes and we're going to wrap it up. We got Gen XRP. They say, hey, legend, asking for a friend. If he has 500K XRP, if he joined DWP, how soon could he retire happy? That's 1.5 mil at today's value. If we're generating him somewhere around 10% a year, which is our goal and target, well, really 12% is what I'm targeting or hopeful for on the funds. That would be around, it'd be 150 grand today. But as the asset appreciates, if we got to a $10 XRP, he's looking at 5 million, and we're making him 500K a year, potentially, with the strategies that we have today. So, if he's only making $150,000 a year right now, or $200,000 a year right now, and that's what he needs to live, it's possible that we could replace his income with the stuff that we already have in place. If he's anticipating more appreciation in order to be able to achieve the income that he has today, again, with the interest rates I just put out, then it might take a little longer. I don't think it's going to take that much longer. We look forward to working with him. And if it's you, look forward to working with you. I know how people are. A couple more super chats and we'll wrap it up tonight. We got Turd Ferguson. They say, Jake, thank you for the content. I have XRP in an IRA. Does it make sense to liquidate after appreciation? Well, I don't know how old you are. I don't know what your goals are. I don't know if it's a Roth or a traditional IRA. I don't know if it's a self-directed IRA. I don't know if it's a SEP IRA. You just said IRA. So very nondescript on the IRA. Without the context of how old you are, if you're in an area where, you would receive taxes and penalties for withdrawal, Do you plan on trading it? And if you're going to trade it, what are you going to swap it into that's going to have higher returns than XRP? Or are you looking to invest it in private equity and AI companies or like other digital assets in a tax deferred or tax free manner if it's a Roth? We can absolutely work with you at Digital Wealth Partners on that IRA and be able to custody it and be able to generate additional returns inside the IRA as of November this year. Lots of stuff going on there. We can't borrow against it. You can't margin the principal that's invested in an IRA. It's qualified capital or a qualified account. And so that makes it difficult to do some things. If you're younger, you absolutely might consider liquidating it and paying the fees and taxes now versus later. If you're younger than 50 years old, it may or may not make sense. Depends on how much XRP you have outside of your IRA. I'm just running through scenarios here because you didn't give me, I mean, you gave me a good question, but you didn't give me a ton of context around it. And again, this is stuff that our advisors would go over with you. So it's probably the best directive I can give you would be to book a time with one of our advisors at Digital Wealth Partners. And they can walk you through what's going to be the best case scenario for you, your goals, and your vision for your life. We got Mark. He says, hey, since I live in California, yes, my luck. After price appreciation, I wanted to buy a property in Missouri and open an LLC. Is it true that Missouri has no cap gains tax, and would that be beneficial? Oh, this again. Look, a state can lobby for no federal capital gains tax or no state capital gains tax, but they're not the federal government. And until the IRS is abolished and goes away, you're going to have to pay capital gains on your crypto. It doesn't matter which state you live in. I don't like Florida. I'm in Texas. Texas is trying to do it too. Okay. It's not going to work. It's a federal tax. It's not a state tax. States make state laws. The federal government makes federal laws. So no matter how hard, I mean, unless like all the states band together and said it, not going to happen. It's kind of wishful thinking. You know, I was watching a video from another guy the other night and he was like, you need to talk to your senator and like, you need to be advocating for regulation. And, people don't need LLCs because they don't even understand this asset class and we need to get rid of the Fed. And I'm like, I sit on the digital chamber. I speak to the regulators. I'm in the working groups proposing legislation on how to regulate this asset class. And we work with people that do need, structure around their estate, people that have more than $50,000 to $80,000 invested in digital assets. A person that owns like 3 XRP, I can help them get educated. I provide some financial education and business resources through the Mastermind for that individual. But we're not advocating that they get an LLC to manage 3 XRP. That's absurd. So anyway, there's a lot of people out there that I don't want to say have a poor mindset. I'll say that. There are people out there that have a poor mindset. I would get out of California if you can. I would buy a residence somewhere else. I would make that your primary residence. I would homestead that so that you live there outside of California. Nevada is great for that also. There's a bunch of protections and benefits for Nevada LLCs or Wyoming LLC. I wouldn't form an LLC in Missouri. They have other state tax. They might not have state tax on crypto, but they for sure have state tax on other stuff. So anyway, would love to work with you to help you get out of California and mitigate your taxes when the time comes, my man. We got Daniel. He says, hey, Jake, join the Mastermind. Love it. If someone has north of 41,000 XRP, what's the next step should be taken? Also, what's would lead be the threshold old to park them with your group? What would be the threshold? Huh? Geez. Sorry, there was a space in there. 100,000 XRP is our minimum in order to work with Digital Wealth Partners. There have been a few times in the past where we've lowered it to 50,000. I cannot do that again in 2025. Maybe next year they will let me. Well, it's not me. I'm not, I'm on the board. I don't make the decisions there. I don't run the day-to-day. Max Kahn is our CEO there. I might be able to talk him into it next year, I guess. So I would definitely set up an LLC. I mean, you got over $120,000 worth of crypto at this point. That's definitely enough to think about creditor protection and getting it out of your taxable estate. Obviously an LLC is going to be passed through and you elect it as an S corp. So you're technically going to end up paying the taxes on it anyway when you do liquidate or generate returns, but you can use the LLC to spend the money in a way to mitigate taxes. The LLC gives you the most flexibility now. It also allows you to establish bank accounts and season those in to make sure that when you do sell, if you plan to sell or generate returns with it, and you move 6, 7, 8 figures into a bank account, it's not going to get flagged or frozen. That's a big concern for a lot of people. And so we want to be able to mitigate that risk as much as we can. Business accounts are not anywhere near as exposed to that type of risk versus a personal account. And again, you'll be able to mitigate taxes and do much, much more if you do have the assets inside of an LLC sooner than later. So that would be my recommendation. You don't have to do that through us. If you want to set that up with us, you can. Other attorneys are going to charge you somewhere between $1,800 and $2,500 per, just for the operating agreement, and that excludes the filing, and also any corporate veil service that they provide is going to be more than that. We do everything, all of it, $2,000 end to end. If you use the code 50OFF, 50 OFFDAG LLC. This person says, what about 270,000 XRP? Almighty J, we can figure something out for you, Digital Wealth Partners. If you want to get in on that 75 bips promotion, I would go ahead and have a conversation with the group over there. Just go ahead and go to the digitalwealthpartners.net website, go to the contact us form and see what they can do for you, my man. You are very close to the amount that we need in order to get you that 75 basis points. If that's you and not your friend, it might be your friend. This person says, yeah, 36,000 XRP. Like, that's a good bag. I don't want people to feel like they don't have a really good bag of XRP if they have less than 100,000. You're doing great. That's just where it starts to make sense for us to work with people because of the compliance and red tape and regulations and all the stuff we have to deal with for the fees and our partners. And that will come down over time. Obviously, as price appreciation happens, more dollars per XRP makes it less XRP to meet the minimum. We've got CK13. They say, the man, the myth, the legend. Proactively setting up my LLC through your partners. How does borrowing against XRP work? You mentioned an annuity that could pay interest. So until we have longer term notes, the annuity thing's not going to work. I thought that there was a way to be able to take like 20 or 30% of your borrowed money and park it in an annuity and make enough on it the first year to be able to cover the interest. You really can't do it. If you plan to roll the note to the next year, you could. It takes some time for that money to start working in order to be able to pay off that. So working on it. I'm working on solutions. Sometimes it's more frustrating than it is helpful. But you can absolutely borrow against your XRP in institutional custody or through the Mastermind. Either one of those. Again, if you wanted to join the Mastermind and get access to borrowing against your XRP, we have that exclusively with our partner. You can get funded in like 45 minutes, no credit check. It's awesome. I love it. But you just go to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. And again, if you have the LLC set up like this gentleman or lady, not sure which, then you'd be able to borrow against as little as $5,000 worth of XRP if your Wyoming LLC is set up. And again, pretty good deal. I don't know anybody else that's giving anybody access to liquidity for that little amount of money. And that might be a lot of money for some people, but I'm just saying, most of the time it's at least 100,000 that people are willing to then borrow or provide liquidity against. We got Shade Spot. What's up? They say also with the insurance on your AUM, it's currently 100 million. If XRP goes to 100,000x, what will you do? Well, you get insurance for 100 billion. Also, how do we whitelist wallets via DWP? Just email your advisor over there and they'll get you the whitelisted wallet function. They'll help you out with that. So if it does get hacked somehow, there's a reason that BlackRock moved their assets over to Anchorage. If it's good enough for BlackRock, it's good enough for me. That's kind of how I look at it. But they do have a whitelisted option for the wallet. And so the worst case scenario is somebody hacks it and sends that money back to your cold wallet. We do have the ability to get species insurance through Lloyd's of London and our broker, and that's what we would do on the accounts in order to be able to meet the new thresholds of people's assets. It's probably an additional expense that we would pass on or share with the clients. It'll probably be a share type deal because it will be costly in order to get the additional insurance from Lloyd's. But I do want to be able to provide that for people that do want it. So if you're insured up to 100 million and you need it for, 10 billion, then, we'll figure out the species on it in order to be able to do it. But 2 more super chats, then we're going to wrap it up tonight. We got, this person's asked, say someone doesn't have a decent amount of XRP on Coinbase, but not enough to work with your firm. Where should we move it to? Is iTrust okay in the interim? I think iTrust will be fine. They use Fireblocks for their infrastructure. It is segregated. It's not bankruptcy remote. I do think they have some insurance on the assets there at iTrust. They do not want to move assets over to us. I'll tell you that. They want to hold on to them as long as they can. So it's probably secure. But if it's on Coinbase, it's not inside of an IRA. I would move it to a cold wallet. A cold wallet's going to be your best option, and just be very careful with your keys and do not send the crypto to anybody under any circumstances for any reason. Unless you want to work with us in institutional custody, and make sure it's us too. Don't just take my word for it. Like, be very specific. We will send you, when you work with us to onboard into Anchorage, you'll get an email from Securitize. That's our portal partner. In order for you to be able to get the funding instructions and all that. All right, this is the last one for tonight, and then we're going to wrap it up. We got CK13 again. They say, Jake, thanks for your response in the Mastermind. You truly care about your community. I try to get back to everybody. Sometimes it takes me a little while, but I really do try to get back to everybody that messages me there. Again, I will not message you. If I message you on any platforms, it is not me. It's a fake. It's a scam, and you will get scammed if you interact with that bot. Do not interact. Block, report. It's not me. But if you DM me on Discord, I will respond to you eventually within 3-4 days, most of the time. What do you think HBAR and Ondo prices will be in the next 50 to 120 months? 50 to 120 months. So like next 5 to 10 years? Very high. I don't even have numbers. I'm at my wit's end tonight on my ability to reason and think. So unfortunately, I am going to have to wrap it up here. But I think that both of those are fantastic projects, and they will appreciate substantially, and people will make a lot of money. There are a few super chats here that I did miss. I can see them, and I apologize for that. If you wouldn't mind, again, just sending me those via DM in the Discord, and I will make sure that you get those answered. With that, I'm going to wrap it up tonight. If you want to join the Mastermind, so you can DM me, you just use the code BEYONDBROKE, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, get you the first month for $2 there in the Mastermind. If you need the LLC to make sure that you can mitigate taxes, protect yourself from creditors, not flag your bank account, not be rushing around post-price appreciation, making mistakes, you can work with us. You can work with another attorney. That's fine. I just want to make sure that people understand what they need to do. If you want to work with us, you just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io. and use the code 50OFF, 50OFF, DAGLLC. Get you everything end to end for $2,000. And if you are somebody that holds more than 300,000 XRP or at least $900,000 in digital assets, and you want institutional custody and you've been on the fence because you're like, the fees are too high, we are running a promotion. This is more than half off of what we would normally charge on the AUM fees, because I know that can be rough for people. We want people to participate and protect their assets and not lose them, and also get access to be able to generate returns safely on your digital assets. So if all that sounds great to you, if you fall in that bucket, or here's another one, we also have traditional assets now at Digital Wealth Partners. So if you have, let's call it $400,000 in your IRA and you got $100,000 with the XRP, we can take you as a client. And that is the way to come on board with less digital assets. If you have a traditional portfolio that does have a lot of assets in it, and an IRA, 401k, or just traditional stock portfolio that you want to move over, we would love to work with you on that. And again, all of that is at digitalwealthpartners.net. Go to the contact us form and fill that out. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, a wonderful night. We'll see you guys on the next one.